Many of you who have watched us over the years, around this time, it's spring, summer, and we start thinking about guys getting on the field and doing drills and then into camp and that sort of thing. And we've done this deal that's called potential breakout players. And unfortunately, it's been, for a couple of years, we kind of have some repeats. Maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year. I remember we've had Volson on there. We've had Zachary Carter on there. I mean, but this goes back years and years and years. Yeah, I know. So we're doing a little bit of a different spin on this here, and it's a make or break player, 2025 make or break player. And what we mean by this, just for a little clarification, is this person either needs to show up and play really well in camps, preseason, and or into the season should they make the team. So either or both, right? I mean, it could be, you gotta show out in the spring and summer, make the team, and then parlay that into a solid year to remain with the team and have a future with the team. So I'm going to go with some real low hanging fruit here, John. And I know we each have one to talk about here, but we have to talk about this guy, Jermaine Burton, a guy that many people were excited about. He was like the darling of workouts this time last year, right? I mean, he was all the video highlights, and it's like, oh man, can you imagine if this is their number 3 wide receiver? What if Yoshi takes the next step, and then you've got T and Jamar, and it just imploded for a lot of different reasons. And you can go back also. John and I had the pleasure of talking with TJ Hushmanzada. I believe it was in October, right? It was right after the Bengals beat the Raiders. So fun interview with him as to be expected. But we asked him point blank about what's going on with Burton? What have you said to him? Because TJ was in town and talked to him. Burton, I think in that game, John, that was the one where he was a healthy scratch for the first time, if I'm not mistaken. So there's since been some other issues that have gone on off the field, but the bottom line is Jermaine Burton has been in the Bengals doghouse the entirety of his rookie year. He's got a lot of work to do to get out of it and hopefully get his head on straight to be a productive player. We know the talent's there. We know the talent is there. There's a track record in college where he bounced around to a lot of different schools. Nick Saban made some pretty infamous statements about him when the Bengals drafted him. So this, and I say make or break, usually you go, okay, it's year 3, right? Year 3 is where you really gauge a player, that sort of thing. But I think in year 2, if you're not only not seeing progress on the field, but you're also kind of still having these other issues that plagued him last year, he could be a guy that was a high pick that may not see out his whole rookie contract with the Bengals if things do not work out. I don't think that's a stretch in saying that. But if he does get things in order, he does get his house in order, he does, do things the right way, doesn't have to be an all-star with Chase and Higgins on the team, but if he can be that long ball guy, that speed guy opposite Chase and do all the different things we have seen him do, that takes this offense to the absolute next level. And oh, by the way, can help you out in the kick return game potentially too.
Well, for starters there, that is his biggest way of impacting this team because he found that role late last year and it's something that fits his skill set. He's a fast and explosive player, and the kickoff return aspect of the game is only getting more important because teams are now incentivized more and more to make sure that the ball is in the landing area and not a touchback, because now it starts at the 35. So he's going to have a really good chance of earning that role, and it's a role that's going to keep him active on game days if he does obviously the right things between Monday and Saturday to make sure that he is active on game days. But you're right, man. Going back to this time last year, there was a lot of pressure on the Bengals and Burton to just immediately being good, because at this time you didn't know that Joseph was going to be the player that he was and ascend into that third wide receiver role. And obviously there's still more growth that Yoshi can make as a young player himself, but there was pressure on Burton potentially being the number 3 receiver and starting and proving all this doubt about him and his character wrong. And obviously the absolute worst case scenario didn't happen, but it wasn't far from it for his rookie season for how it went down. So now that you have your top 3 established, now that you have Higgins obviously here for the long term, because that was another thing, right? Is he potentially T. Higgins' long-term replacement, because he was only here for another year at the time that pressure
Mhm.
is gone in terms of him being one of the top 3 receivers on this team. Draft status at this point is out the window. At this point, you're just hoping that he does enough to obviously stay with the team and be ready if he is called upon as a receiver, because Trenton Irwin was the number 4 receiver in this offense for a handful of years. And when his number was called, he stepped up and made plays, and he always continued to be reliable to make sure that he would continue to get those opportunities. And that is the opportunity now in Fred and Burton, with these 3 guys ahead of him, with a clear role on special teams in line for him. And if he just does the right things, he can just salvage whatever is left of this rookie contract. He has 3 years left. It doesn't make sense to cut him financially this year, but it makes a lot more sense
No.
next year if
Yeah.
things don't progress right.
Yeah.
So you're right, man. Even for a 3rd-round pick and entering year 2, this might as well be a year 3 make it or break it for Jermaine Burton for so many other reasons.
Yeah, I think this year he is safe, and I also think that the draft class, not going wide receiver, maybe that was super predictable because of the long-term deals that they got done with both Chase and Higgins. You go, well, that's just not a need, but you almost do the old deal where, oh man, Burton might be one of those extra picks this year because he gave you nothing last year, and so now maybe he takes the next step, matures, and I love the thought process that you just laid out about the lack of pressure on him to be, superstar guy, live up to, the billing of Chase and Higgins and all that kind of stuff. They don't need that. If he can be a deep threat, if he can be somewhat reliable, like you said, when called upon, if he can give you the occasional nice return in the kick return game, there you go. That's a good foundation to keep building on and moving forward into year 3. But if it's more of the same, like you said, even if it's as big of a mess as it was last year, I'm really interested to see what the Bengals end up doing and if they're going to, pull the plug on that, or if they're going to let things ride out in year 2 because they did not draft a wide receiver in this year's class. And they're thinking that at least he'll give us something and much more than last year.
Yeah, if things go off the rails this year, it's going to be looked at as one of the worst picks, especially in the Zach Taylor era, but maybe in recent Bengals history. So that there is still pressure, obviously, with that. There's also pressure on the other side.